Here we are, the final step of the road, the final title in the Uncharted series before Naughty Dog abandoned it. Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, a title that began as a DLC and then became its own thing, as the scope became too large for an expansion. As always, this is a deep dive into elements of the Uncharted series. There will be spoilers. Development for this title began at the end of Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, and with a whole new leadership. Kurt Marginal and Sean Eskeg as game and creative directors respectively. The team explored several options. First, it was Uncharted 5, but because The Last of Us 2 was already in development and likely had most of the studio's resources, they chose a DLC for a much more condensed experience. Still, they ended up with a full game, just a smaller one. In terms of characters, they explored Nathan as a secondary character, and it didn't work. Felt superfluous, according to the developers. Cassie Drake, Nate's daughter, was also considered, as were Cutter, Sully, and Sam, though Sully's age made it impossible. They thought it would impede gameplay. So ultimately, the choice fell on Chloe and Nadine, portrayed once more by Claudia Black and Laura Bailey respectively, with Usman Ali joining them as the main baddie, Asaf. Uncharted: The Lost Legacy released in 2017 to positive reviews, even earning some award nominations. Unlike any of the previous entries in the series, there is no opening quote for Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. Instead, we see Chloe in a market, trying out some accessories while the little girl running the stall looks at her. They haggle a bit, the kid being very shrewd for her age. But Chloe's not about to let this child get one over her. Outside, there's a crowd, some people just buying and selling, but there's also a strong military presence. There's a conflict going on. Indian army versus rebels. Chloe makes her way closer to the soldiers. There's a truck she wants to climb onto to make her way into an area controlled by the insurgents. The little girl passes her by and steals something from her. A memento her father left her, a small figure of Ganesh, the elephant-headed god of the Hindu religion. She takes the figure back and attempts to climb on the truck. A guard almost sees her, but the little girl distracts him. Once on the other side, she jumps off the truck and heads for a building with a red door, marked on a photo on her phone. She's meeting someone. Moving around stealthily, staying out of the way, and being very careful and respectful as she passes through a checkpoint, she makes it to the red door, though there is a moment of tension with some of the rebels. And that moment of tension explodes into a full fight when Chloe runs into them again on the rooftop of the Red Door building. She's not supposed to be there. Chloe does her best to contend with them, but in the end needs a save from the person she was there to meet, her partner in at least this crime. Nadine Ross, who we last saw leaving Rafe and Nate to die on Avery's ship in Uncharted 4. After the fight, the two protagonists clash. Nadine is very angry at Chloe's apparent lack of professionalism, concerned that they're stepping into unnecessary danger, explaining how she has experience with Asaf and he's very dangerous and paranoid. Chloe snaps back, making it clear that this is her gig, and if Nadine wants her share, she'll have to play by Chloe's rules. Nadine's fuming, but eventually concedes the point and hands Chloe her binoculars, telling her who she should look for to identify Asaf. He's the one with the beard, she says, which is not much of a description. I'd have gone with, he's the guy barking orders, with the beard and the glasses. There could be a lot more bearded fellas out there. Chloe points out that Asaf is handsome. Nadine replies only if he likes psychopaths. They shift their attention to the top floor of the opposite building, Asaf's base of operation, the balcony being their point of entry. A little rooftop parkour and some tutorials later, and our pair arrives at that balcony. Chloe tries to pick the lock, but Nadine is not up for wasting time and just breaks the glass and opens the door from the inside, with Chloe admitting that yeah, that works too. Inside Asaf's office, they look around, finding his collection of artifacts. From what Chloe says, it's likely this is the main source of income for funding his insurrection. There's a lot to choose from, but they're here for one item in particular, a metal disc. Nadine wonders if seeing all of these artifacts bothers Chloe, given that they're all Indian artifacts, implying that she should feel something given her heritage. But Chloe simply says it's not her fight. This is Chloe, who we've learned from the previous games that morality is not exactly her strong suit. They find the item in a lockbox, which doesn't remain locked for long. As soon as they grab it, Asaf, aka Wish.com Lazarevic, and his men enter the room. Asaf is calm, seemingly reasonable, but you know what they say about the quiet ones, eh? Asaf speaks directly to Nadine, like old friends, even complimenting her, but the look on her face is one of concern, fear even. He wants to know if she's looking for work, given that Shoreline is no longer under her management. And given how crappy she was as a leader on Uncharted 4, how she didn't just run for the hills, along with all of her men the microsecond Nathan Drake, the veritable angel of death on this world, came in, I'm not surprised she lost control of the company. Nadine more or less says she's okay, and Asaf says it's a pity, they could use someone like her. Then the charm is gone and he poses a question directly. Why is she here? Artifacts are not really her thing. Seems to me he didn't play Uncharted 4. This is where Chloe steps in, likely feeling the situation going from bad to worse. She admires the collection and introduces herself as a collector of antiquities, a very polite way of saying treasure hunter, and Asaf calls her a thief, which is fair. He turns to Nadine looking disappointed that he's working with a thief. Asaf gets a call, there's trouble somewhere else. He turns to the ladies and demands the disc from Chloe. This is where Chloe makes her play, a play we've seen Nate do many times before, the "you're looking for this thing and you're lost, but I can help you in exchange for you not killing me" play. She starts by praising the fact that they found the Hoysala Empire, but then gets to the point, mentioning the big prize, the Horn of Ganesh, and continues on with the spiel. Nadine looks confused, then angry, thinking Chloe is about to betray her. That's fair. She's been double-crossed in the past, and she's not exactly flexible. But then again, she's witnessed this play a few times already, just from the other side of it. Asaf paces, understanding what she's putting down, filling in the blanks that he needs someone with a deep understanding of the Hoysala Empire, their culture, and their history. Then Chloe says that her rates are reasonable, and that makes him stop, like it was the wrong thing to say. He turns and calls her a parasite, exploiting their struggle to line her pockets. Chloe isn't fazed. She's charmingly, perhaps even mockingly, asking, so that's a no? Her attitude impresses him, but he doesn't need more experts. Keep that in mind for later. It's gonna come up. He tells his men to shoot them and dump the bodies, to which Chloe replies that there's no need, they'll see themselves out, kicking the desk, and the oil lamp on it falls and starts a fire. The insurgents stormtrooper them, cracking the glass on the other side, making it easier for them to jump through and into the night, avoiding the gunfire and fighting some insurgents. During a little breather moment, Nadine accuses Chloe of attempting to betray her, with Chloe explaining that it's called improvisation. They argue back and forth, Nadine even warning that the last person to betray her ended up dead, which is a nice sentiment if she had actually something to do with that, but we know better. But hey, Chloe doesn't know. Their discord is interrupted by a hail of gunfire, so they proceed until they both jump on a power line and use it as a zip line down to the river, where a boat is waiting for them, one of Nadine's contacts. On the boat at dawn, Chloe is fiddling with the disc while Nadine is looking through the papers about the horn. Nadine notices the lack of progress on the disc and casually asks, any luck? With Chloe pointing out confidently that she doesn't need luck, and Nadine replying that it could use all the luck possible. Chloe, exasperated, asks if Nadine is worried about Asaf's expert. Nadine goes into it, saying if they're not already there, Asaf will likely be at their heels in the Western Ghats. But as she's speaking, Chloe figures out how to activate the disc, the shape changing before their very eyes, showing two elephant heads side by side. Nadine notices the disc's new shape and wonders if it's a key, and Chloe says it very well could be. With a book on Hindu mythology, Chloe looks for the weapons included on the edges of the disc, and I have to give props to Naughty Dog for the intricate design of the disc, especially the little carved figures on the edge. It just evokes this amazing sense of mystery. The bow belongs to Parashurama, an avatar of the god Vishnu. The trident, they say, is Ganesh's, and the axe is a gift from the god Shiva. The game focuses a lot on these three figures, especially the event where Parashurama caught Ganesh's tusk with a Shiva's axe. The tale goes that Parashuram went to visit Shiva to pay his respects, but just before that, Shiva had retreated to his chambers to meditate and left his son, Ganesh, to guard the entrance. When Parashuram arrived, Ganesh told him he had to wait until Shiva was finished with what he was doing. But Parashurama, who was on a mission of his own and bearing an axe that was a gift from Shiva, thought he should be given immediate access, which is some nice little bit of entitlement there. Ganesh replied essentially, "Sorry bro, ain't happening." Impatient, Parashurama lost his temper and swung his axe at Ganesh, cutting the tusk off. And realizing how much he'd messed up after the deed was done, Shiva came out, having heard the conflict. Parashurama recognized his mistake, showed remorse, and begged for forgiveness. Ganesh forgave him and gave him his blessing. Shiva was part furious at seeing his son get injured, but he also recognized the remorse and the grace his son had shown, so he also gave Parashurama his blessing. For the record, this is a very shortened version of the entire thing, but as much as I love talking mythology, that's not what we're here for. But it is a story that is referenced perhaps too many times in this game. There is one final aspect of the story that I'll mention later, around the time when the characters find out about it. After identifying the weapons, Chloe says it's very likely that when they find these symbols, they'll find the tusk. But it's clear that Chloe's been out of the Uncharted story for a while, because otherwise she'd know there's at least 15 more hoops to jump through before they can get their hands on the treasure. Nadine's impressed, but Chloe replies that her father is to thank for her knowledge, saying it in a dismissive tone. Nadine says he must be proud then, that his knowledge stuck to her, and while we can't really see her face, her expression changes. Nadine picks up the little Ganesh figure, but Chloe immediately takes it from her, almost ripping it from her hands. She says, "Sun's almost up," and Nadine's expression is confused, bordering on displeased, but she says she'll get ready, letting it go, for now at least. As she leaves, Chloe sits down, puts the figure in front of her, and just stares at it, a wistful expression on her face. The scene shifts to the entrance to the Western Ghats, up on a vantage point from where they can see a very large edifice in the distance, Hoysala in design, but Nadine is not happy, saying she doesn't like it, and Chloe retorts that Nadine doesn't like anything. And you know what? Given her attitude in Uncharted 4, that kind of tracks. She's worried they've not seen anything of Asaf and his men. She's a glass half empty kind of person, and Chloe's a glass half full, saying that maybe they got the jump on them. And I'm here to tell you they have the jump on them about as much as Nate had the jump on any of the forces they contended with across the 4 games. That is, not at all. They're here and they're waiting. Case in point, a giant gate leading to the Ghats proper. There is a contingent of insurgents standing outside, and I hope they believe in reincarnation, because this life is done after Chloe and Nadine are through with them. Through the gate is the main area for this entire chapter, and it's by far the largest map in all of Uncharted. And yes, that counts both the open maps in Uncharted 4. Those were pretty barren compared to the spectacle that is the Western Ghats, a place with a lot of things to find and plenty to explore. But unfortunately, the objectives you need to hit are very repetitive in nature. Get to location, fight soldiers, go up the tower, activate mechanism, go down, fight some more soldiers, continue on your way. It's made even worse if you pursue all the Hoysala tokens to grab the Queen's Bracelet, a special item that vibrates and glows when near optional treasures. There's way too many of these, and the hunt for them is not exactly engaging. It feels like Ubisoft's busybody kind of map stuff. With that said, one of the towers is one of the coolest puzzles in all of Uncharted. A platforming puzzle where you jump to different platforms, with armed statues that move every time you land on a new step, either winding up or striking with their weapons. If you don't time it right, you get hurt and have to try again. It's pretty fun. At each point you explore, the mechanism triggers a change in a distant location, a giant stone wall, each time creating a small waterfall at the top, flowing through ancient stone pipes. When all 3 are active, the axe, the trident, and the bow, the waterfalls power a lever near the base of the wall, which in turn reveals that the wall is in fact a door, leading to the hidden Hoysala capital of Halebidu. The real highlight of this section is the conversations that happen in the Jeep while on the way to the different towers, as the 2 leads bond over stories, such as Nadine having had a thing with Asaf, because it was useful for her purposes but she regrets the entire thing. Chloe suggests they discuss it over drinks, and Nadine says there isn't enough alcohol in the world. So it was that bad. There's Chloe's constant dismissal of Asaf, saying she never quite understood the point of people like him. And given that she's got some Lazarevic experience, I can understand her point of view. Nadine says that Asaf finds people who want power and he gives them purpose. Once Nadine learns what the tusk meant for the Hoysala, she says she finally understands why Asaf is after it, with Chloe saying he'll use it to rally the people to his cause and wave this priceless artifact in the government's face. They're wrong. He's after something far more mundane. But we'll get to that. But you also already had a clue in his office. He has a bunch of artifacts and he uses them for monetary gain. There's of course a question of why Nadine is so focused on getting Shoreline back. That's her whole deal this time around. She was born into it. It was a family business and she lost it, so she needs to get it back. She says her partner took her men. Her lieutenant went off with some of the money and the Drakes walked off into the sunset. But lady, that is your own damn fault for not pulling away sooner. She lost like 300 people to Nathan Drake alone, and it wasn't until there were like 2 remaining that she thought, maybe this isn't worth it. So yeah, just desserts. Nadine comments on how the Hoysala went to a whole lot of trouble to hide the tusk, and Chloe replies that it was the symbol of their dominance, but that her dad thought it meant a lot more. When Nadine asks if her father went after the tusk, she says he was obsessed with it, spending all of their money on fruitless expeditions. Nadine looks shocked and says she's heard that one before. Yeah, she was partnered with a guy like that. Then she asks Chloe what came of all that, and Chloe says she has no idea. Her dad sent them away to Australia, claiming it wasn't safe. And now she's here doing very much the same thing, on the outskirts of Halebidu, the second capital of the Hoysala Empire. And as for her little figurine, it arrived in the mail a few weeks after they got to Australia. The last thing she ever received from her dad. Best bit of all is Nadine judging Chloe on dating Nathan. And Chloe just tells her, hey, you dated Asaf and you hung around the Nepo baby. You can't throw any stones. Nadine just says that Nathan just thinks he's so clever. And to be fair, he is very clever. She just doesn't appreciate it because the cleverness didn't work in her favor. So, not just desserts, there's sour grapes too. But then Chloe delivers a line that is the absolute truth. That Nathan is incredibly irritating, but also very charming in his own way. They cross a giant stone door and find themselves overlooking a set of waterfalls and 2 massive statues of Ganesh carved into the cliffside itself. One of them with a gigantic hole in its head, likely from a Persian trebuchet. It's their way inside. Chloe has a moment, sitting down, taking a breath, not believing she's here after hearing so much of Halebidu from her father. Nadine tells her to send a photo to him. Hell, show it to him in person when she next sees him, and she says it's a bit too late for that. A few decades too late. Nadine looks mortified, realizing she stuck her foot very deep in her mouth and attempts to apologize, but Chloe says it's okay. Halebidu is littered with corpses, hundreds of skeletons, from Hoysala and Persian warriors alike, but the numbers are staggering. This was the last stand of the Hoysala, and apparently it wasn't enough. Clearing a path through the bodies, they come to a puzzle room. A shadow puzzle, much like the one in Uncharted 3, only the shadows need to be projected on 2 walls at the same time. One showing Shiva giving Parashuram the axe, and the other was the avatar striking Ganesh. The puzzle triggers a door, and inside is a receptacle for the disc at the base of a statue of Salah and the tiger. Placing the key in the receptacle closes the door and lights all fires. And when Chloe turns the key, it changes shape once more, and on its own. You can see the clockwork mechanism inside it turning, the image changing to that of Shiva. So, Salah and the tiger. It's the folklore origin story of the Hoysala, and tells the tale of a young boy called Salah, who along with his Jainism guru were both attacked by a tiger. The guru calling out, Hoy Salah, Hoy meaning to strike. So he was telling the young man to strike, and he does, killing the tiger. Thus the family name, Hoysala, was born. As soon as Chloe pulls out the new reformed key, the ground shakes, and it turns out they're on an elevator. Nadine is angry they didn't find the tusk, and thinks the Hoysala just sent them on a wild goose chase for nothing. And Chloe, thinking about it, says she's right, that Halebidu, the big new city with the giant gold statues outside, was just a decoy to protect the real location of the tusk and the real home of the Hoysala, the original capital, Belur. And that's why the key changed to show Shiva, as Shiva is the symbol of the old capital. The key is the clue of where to go next. Their discussion gets interrupted because it seems that on becoming main characters, they've inherited Nathan's reverse Midas touch. And so of course, the entire thing starts to collapse and come down on them, and they barely make it outside, taking a little time to sit down and recuperate. But then they notice the giant waterfall is gone, and a lot of water is rushing past in an aqueduct. In fact, the waterfall was a dam, one that is now closed to divert water somewhere else. They start talking, admiring the scene, and it seems like the tension between them is finally gone, both laughing and joking, Nadine even apologizing for bringing up her father. But Chloe once again says it's okay, and that he and Nadine would have gotten along swimmingly, both being incredibly stubborn people. But while the conversation is nice, they realize the mechanism they triggered definitely would not go unnoticed, so they start moving. If there you jump into the water and there's a treasure to find, Nadine tells Chloe there's no time for Marco Polo, making Chloe chuckle, as she remembers Nate telling out Marco Polo in Nepal in Uncharted 2. It's a nice, clever little Easter egg. The way down is rocky as they come under a whole lot of fire from Asaf's men and the return of the heavily armored SUV that seems to be in most of these games. But the two manage to escape while also putting down more of Asaf's men. They manage to break through a door, but on the other side the floor collapses under them, leaving them in what looks like an old prison. They open the way to an adjoining chamber, one with two weak walls, a smaller one leading to the rushing aqueduct, and a bigger one leading outside. Chloe attempts to climb the taller one, and that's when the armored vehicle slams into the wall, toppling it and sending Chloe flying. And I'll be honest, sudden appearance of the cart right there doesn't make all that much sense, nor does the timing. Asaf would need to be psychic to know to bring the car right around here to intercept them. In any case, the two leads are on the floor, and Asaf and his men jump out of the car, the men striking Nadine repeatedly as Asaf picks up the disc, talking to Chloe, impressed at their progress and the changes on the key, claiming his own guy made no progress in a week. Chloe points out again that he probably hired the wrong expert. Asaf admits that may be true, then starts shoving stones from that other weak wall into the aqueduct. He then goes on a villainous monologue, how a poet wrote that a young Hoysala king ended the old traditions and rituals, but that the old kings knew that progress demands sacrifice, and that he will purge the weak blood of the young king, and so on and so forth. Chloe is not impressed, and just wonders if that's what Asaf tells his men, to either impress them or intimidate them. Both are equally possible. Asaf draws his gun, checks the ammo, then crouches and gets on Chloe's eye level, before continuing with his tale, saying that in times of war, the aqueducts would run red. Those who wouldn't fight were used as examples to inspire others to do so. He then stands and points his gun at Chloe, but before he can shoot, the sound of Nadine fighting the goons draws his attention, giving Chloe an opening to swat his gun away and start fighting him. And much like the Nadine fight in Uncharted 4, this is heavily scripted and you can't really win, but you can lose before the correct moment. The Asaf fights are atrocious, a much simplified version of the Wraith final boss fight. Just push one button to dodge, and dodge again until the prompt displays your counterattack. Rinse and repeat, even having that typical Naughty Dog thing of making you mash buttons to resist a grab that is not really necessary because you're gonna get saved. There's another problem, of course, and it's that Asaf very much overpowers them. Even with both fighting at the same time, they struggle with him. And why is that a problem, you may ask? Because Uncharted 4 shows us that Nadine is a badass fighter, who not only nearly killed Nate in their first fight, but also fought both Drakes at the same time quite effectively. So Asaf just manhandling them is wildly inconsistent with the portrayal of her fighting skills. Fortunately, this fight is short. After the second or third time you get an opening, Asaf ends the fight tossing Nadine and Chloe through the wall and into the aqueduct, Chloe grabbing onto a ledge at the end of the road, but it collapses and she falls, losing consciousness for a while, waking to find Nadine standing over her. After checking she's okay, they move on. They need to get to Asaf, since he has the disc. And to show there's a turn in their relationship, Nadine tells Chloe that it's nice to have her back. She was unconscious for 30 minutes after all. They manage to make it back through the stone gate and see a giant cow statue rising ahead. A very literal holy cow. Nandi, Shiva's gatekeeper. Its rise likely what the aqueduct was powering. And remember when I said the relationship was having a turn for the better? That's about to change back to some cold ground. Nadine looks through the binoculars at Asaf heading through the passageway in Nandi's statue, but then swears as she sees who Asaf's expert is, Sam Drake. Only he doesn't look like he's in a good position, cuffed and being pulled by Asaf's men. Nadine is livid, but the look on Chloe's face says it all. She knows. She tells Nadine they're kinda here because of Sam, that they were working together but he disappeared and well... Nadine whirls on her, getting in her face about bringing her to this, knowing her history with Sam. But Chloe tries to point out that it was her history with Asaf that made her the right candidate, but she doesn't get to finish that sentence when Nadine punches her lights out. Chloe tries some damage control, but it doesn't really work. Nadine even accusing her of planning to take the Tusk and cutting her out with Sam, and snapping that all treasure hunters do that kind of thing when Chloe tries to say that's not how she works. She looks down at Chloe with disgust, regretting having put her trust in the other woman, before storming off and taking the Jeep. Chloe makes her way back to the central tower in the region, and sees the Jeep has gone up in flames, then notices Nadine go into hiding in the tall grass, with the armored car patrolling the area. This is a boss fight, just one you have to do with a little finesse and some stealth if you want to do it the easy way, grabbing some explosives, throwing them in the car's way, and maybe finishing it with an RPG you take from one of the insurgents, then proceeding to turn them all into compost. Together they open the way through Nandi once more, as it closed after Asaf went through. Nadine and Chloe hash it out. Chloe points out they still need each other's help, and both have a thing to lose. But Nadine makes it clear that her priority is the Tusk, not Sam nor Chloe. And given that it's the best deal she'll get after lying to Nadine, Chloe says, fair enough. As they climb down the stairs, they hear explosions, and Chloe wonders what the hell they're doing. But Nadine knows exactly what. Having done the same thing in Scotland some time ago, they're taking shortcuts, blasting their way to where they need to go instead of doing it the right way. Means that for all his talk of old kings and traditions and rituals, Asaf doesn't really care about the past or these artifacts. They're just means to an end. Which should be the second clue to the player and to the characters that Asaf is not after the Tusk for its symbolism. Passing some tunnels, they find an elephant calf trapped under a collapsed pillar. One of the explosions toppled it. As soon as they move the pillar, the calf takes off with both of them on it. Chloe even grabs a branch full of fruit and feeds it to the calf, taking the scenic route into Balur, the ride helping to dissolve some of the tension between the characters, with Chloe admitting she's not good with people, and that she is indeed a selfish person. Nadine appreciating her saying it. But I'll be honest, Chloe struggling this much to talk is not really consistent with her portrayal in prior games, where she very much speaks her mind and doesn't mince words and makes her feelings known without any issue, even and especially with betrayals of trust. So this whole song and dance here feels forced. Not by the characters, but by the writers. And while they're talking, Nadine asks what exactly happened to Chloe's dad. And the truth is that he died, killed by bandits. Just as it seems we're gonna go a little deeper in this heart-to-heart, the calf suddenly charges, scaring the crap out of them. And it turns out the family is nearby and they're waiting for the little guy. The calf jumps from a ledge into deep water, so Chloe and Nadine are forced off, and it's a good thing. because the last thing they want is to risk the ire of Mama Elephant. Chloe tries to broach the subject of Sam again, but Nadine says she gets it, and it's best for them to move on and not have that hanging over them anymore. There's an optional photo moment here, the Lost Legacy equivalent of Nate writing in his journal, with Nadine and Chloe using forced perspective to make it look like Chloe is petting one of the elephants without actually getting close to them. Moving along, they finally come face to face with Balur, and it's majestic. Funny thing though, both Halebidu and Balur are real-world locations, and they look nothing like they do in the game. So while Uncharted 1 to 4 created new places, including the fictional Lost Cities, Lost Legacy converts two existing ones into majestic feats of impossible engineering and architecture. Chloe wonders at how they're the first people to see this ancient city in a long time, but Nadine completely ruins the moment by pointing out that Asaf and his men are also here. Speaking of those men, they do a good job of getting their blood all over the place, including some of the big lads with miniguns that every pirate army in Uncharted seems to have. But as usual, they prove to be wildly ineffectual. They work their way up ledges across the different levels of the city, and see an image of Shiva and Nandi in case there was any doubt that this was Balur, along with broken statues of one of the 11 kings the Hoysala had, the young king mentioned by Asaf being the last one. And then they find the main entrance to the city proper has been blown to pieces, forcing them to take unusual routes. Chloe says they're doing it on purpose to slow them down, but I doubt that. I think it's more of a case of consequences for using explosives in an ancient city. Take a trip and then a dip and a swim later, somehow find themselves smack dab in a treasure room where a giant depiction of the Tusk sits in, like an altar. It's not the actual Tusk, but more of an image of the kings carrying the horn and shielding the populace, taking arrows in their place. Chloe realizes that every historian out there had it wrong. The Tusk isn't a symbol of dominance, but it's them. The Tusk is the symbol of the Hoysala themselves, of their culture, of their people as a whole. And on top of the Tusk, there are slots for different figurines. And would you believe it that there is a spot just for Chloe's little Ganesh? And when she places it, it locks into place. This feels a tad contrived. Dad sends her this, and a few decades later, it proves to be critical for their progress in the city? That's a mighty coincidence, isn't it? This is not Nathan taking the ring from a museum and seeing the astrolabe there and noticing the ring fits into it. So 20 years later, he knows how to use it. This is her essentially getting an item from a souvenir shop and it being a critical puzzle piece. In any case, Chloe doesn't take this well. On the verge of tears, she realizes her dad had been here and that he was indeed onto something big during his last expedition. Chloe just wonders why he didn't say a word, and Nadine figures it's what Chloe said before about her father sending them away. He was to keep her safe. And yet I question the timeline a bit. When they're talking about her dad's death, his last expedition was the one where he claimed he was onto something big. And it's on that expedition that bandits end up killing him. So he comes in, finds Balur, finds his chamber, gets the little Ganesh, and somehow mails it to Australia before he's killed by bandits? This is in the bottom of nowhere. I didn't know FedEx had offices near ancient forgotten Indian cities. Just saying, the logic is a bit flimsy, bordering on non-existent. But this scene, this is Chloe's turning point. This is her face turn. Upon realizing Daddy had been here, she's now a good guy. Looking around and realizing she can't let Asaf get the horn. But it's no longer he can't get the horn because we want to sell it. No, it's with determination and righteousness that she says it. She must protect it from this psychopath. And you can tell because suddenly she's emotionally invested. And again, it feels a bit forced. It's not earned. And Nadine realizing what she means and going along with it feels even worse. There's not been a single moment where she's expressed any doubt or second guessing of her intent to reclaim Shoreline. And now she's willing to let this go? Are you serious? Nadine tells her not to forget little Ganesh, and when she retrieves the figure, it opens the door. It's a key, and she says out loud, "I'm glad I brought this. It's the essence of contrivance." She almost says it like it's a coincidence, like it was on her bedside table and she said, I'll bring this along for the giggles. Worst thing is, they could have solved this easily, just shifting the perspective on Chloe's dad. Mind you, Chloe's parents or even her ethnicity were not set in stone in prior games. She was just Australian treasure hunter. They decided she needed to have this contentious relationship with her father, where easily they could have made it so he sent her this item with a note explaining some of the context, promising to tell her everything next time they met, and then he died and she never got the full story. So as she's going to look for the Hoysala, following in his footsteps and remembering the note, she brings little Ganesh with her. There, done. Contrivance resolved. But my other issue is that this is not original. It's a retread of old ground, just from a different game series altogether. Young treasure hunter with knowledge of ancient cultures, at least one, as archaeologist dad whose obsessions ended up with his disappearance and or death. And she's now on this quest to prevent the item from falling into the wrong hands. Sound familiar? It should, because that's more or less Tomb Raider. So Chloe in this game is just Australian Lara Croft. The only difference is that Chloe's mom is still alive. They keep going, passing through more caverns, pools, and a bit of architecture, until they swim to a room with a massive statue of Shiva. And yes, this is the next big platforming puzzle, using impossibly old ancient mechanisms to move the arms of the statue and making water flow to fill a basin, then activating a light on Shiva's forehead, pointing to a statue in the distance, and making a massive array of mirrors descend from the ceiling. So basically this is a two-part puzzle, with the second part being a light puzzle. And when you solve them, Asav's men arrive, and this time they have RPGs. And the two leads end up taking a massive tumble into the water below, and when they surface, Asav is already there, his men cuffing them. And this is where the party finally comes together, reunited with Sam, who's just as shocked to see Nadine as she was to see him. And the animosity is clear. But before they can go anywhere interesting or funny with it, Asav interrupts and gives Chloe props for the scheme, stealing the disc, then have Sam, the expert, run Asav in circles. He says maybe there is some Indian blood in her after all. Not likely meaning anything cultural, but maybe because her cleverness is a trait he thinks they share and nobody is more Indian than him after all. At least, that's how a megalomaniac like Asav would think of himself. Speaking of our villain, he puts the key in a receptacle and turns it. But this time the key doesn't change. Instead, the water drains from the room, opening the way to a new area, with platforms raising from the floor, creating a walkway. Asav leads the way, with his men and the prisoners following, and all the while Nadine and Sam are just bickering, with Chloe trying to play referee and telling Sam she trusts Nadine, but he's still not happy. They head into another room, and once again, there are statues of Parashuram and Ganesh, and Asav goes into his own interpretations of the myth that with the swing of an axe, Parashuram brought low one of the greatest gods, Shiva's own son, down to his knees. Another casualty of war, he calls it. They remove Chloe's cuffs and force her to solve the puzzle in this room with her friends at gunpoint. The images in the murals show that Ganesh yielded. He didn't fight back. He took the blow with his hands at his side. So Chloe reproduces that on the statue, moving its arms, and Asav doesn't get it. To prove she's correct, the statue of Parashuram swings the axe and stops just inches from Chloe's face. But Asav is still very confused, and it's time for Chloe to explain. And remember what I said there was a piece of the story I would leave for later? This is it. Ganesh didn't fight. He took the blow. As Chloe explains it, Ganesh knew the axe was a gift from Shiva, and if he had defeated Parashuram, it would have made the axe look weak, to which Nadine replies that Ganesh took the hit to preserve his father's honor, and Chloe mocks Asav that Nadine gets it and she's not even Indian. In the tale, when Parashuram is begging for forgiveness, full of remorse, Ganesh tells him that he knows the axe was a gift from his father and he considers it an honor to bear this injury and gives him his blessing to continue on his mission. The statues sink into the floor, and the platform with the key receptacle rises, revealing the Tusk of Ganesh, a beautiful and intricately gem-inlaid golden tusk. Its worth is astronomical, bordering on priceless, but just what Asav is after. As for our treasure hunters, they've been chained to railings around where Parashurama's statue stood before. Asav gives a nod to his men, who set explosives around the room. He turns to the main characters and says he'd kill them himself, but he needs to be a Bond villain and leaves them to die by other means so they have a chance to escape and thwart his plans. Sorry, he doesn't say that. He says he doesn't want to anger the gods after the trio brought him great fortune, but we know what he really means. Asav takes the key and the outer ring of the room rises, much like the floor did in that room in Halebidu. Asav says that as they drown from the water that will soon rush into the room, they'll have time to contemplate their choices, and he hopes they have a better fortune in their next lives. Sam and Nadine resume their bickering while Chloe does something actually productive and picks the locks on her handcuffs, managing to free herself just as the room begins to flood, and freeing Nadine next. But by then they're underwater, and a second explosion makes her lose her lockpick. So she and Nadine break Sam out of his cuffs by more violent means, the three of them swimming to the surface while dodging falling debris. As they surface, they see a helicopter fly past them, and they wonder how Asav got that. And Sam says it's the buyers, filling in the blanks having spent time with them. Asav, as should be really obvious, doesn't want the tusk for its symbolism. He wants to sell it, which is very practical, but in a long line of Uncharted villains, it makes him kind of boring, to be honest. Though no less diabolical, and proving yet again that his whole spiel of Indian heritage and culture is just a front. Just something else he uses to grandstand, not something he truly believes in. As Chloe looks at the convoy driving away, Sam thanks Nadine for helping him get out of his bonds, and she replies that it was just professional courtesy and that no, they're not cool. They liberate the jeep from one of Asav's men and follow the rest of them until they come to a path leading to a railway station. Nadine chides Sam for not finding anything about the buyers, but he says Asav was cagey, never discussed important stuff near him. And I know Nadine's got some animosity here, but she's the first person who spoke about Asav being careful. So there's really no reason for her to give Sam a hard time other than just, giving him a hard time. Because she knows full well how paranoid Asav is. One of the bits of conversation as you explore is from Sam asking Nadine how she handled the torture when she worked with Asav, having heard about that past relationship. Nadine for a moment sounds concerned, asking if Asav tortured him, and Sam said yeah. He wouldn't shut up about his cause and how great he was, both agreeing that they hate it when people can't shut up. And I wonder if that's the torture they're talking about, having to listen to Asav drone on. Taking the long way around, they come to a train tunnel where new old enemies await them, shoreline soldiers, much to both Sam and Nadine's shock. The person Asav is selling to is Orca, Nadine's lieutenant, the only mook who talks in that scene where they betray her for Rafe. He didn't even have a name back then, but now he's elevated himself to minor secondary villain. It's a big bump in pay, I hear. Asav hands Mullet Soldier Man the tusk in exchange for a giant crate of some kind of weapon, lowered onto a train car before they depart at the conclusion of the deal. The discussion between the protagonist trio tells you that one of the changes Orca made as the new head of Shoreline was to turn them into arms dealers, something they didn't do under Nadine's command. Sam's worried about having a plan. There's like a dozen soldiers out there. But Nadine tells him to relax because he'll live longer that way. A line that Chloe tells her at the beginning of the game, and which makes the other hunter feel so proud for her partner. And yet, this conversation feels very strange considering that fighting a dozen soldiers or more is not a new thing for Sam at this point. He and Nate took out far more than this number in Scotland and beyond. So this feels like a scene put here just so Nadine can say that line. This is a big stealth and or gunfight section. It's best handled as stealth, as there's an armed helicopter flying overhead for reasons. There's truly no logic in Orca remaining here, except you need to be able to get the Tusk back, and you do. First by firing rockets at the helicopter, enough to, I don't know, weaken it, and then use grappling hooks with Nadine to climb onto it and fight Orca inside. And as usually the case, the person who pays the biggest price is the pilot, as he's shot fatally when Chloe and Orca struggle for the gun. So now they're fighting him while in freefall. Orca crawls out of the wreckage with the Tusk, but he's held at gunpoint by Nadine, and they have a nice heart-to-heart. It's actually quite beautiful. Now, Nadine says she should have killed him, and he agrees that it would have been better than seeing her run away. And I disagree with that. Her running away was the first instance of her being intelligent on the job. Orca notices Sam and is baffled that they would be working together, telling Nadine that she must be desperate, with Sam stepping away as he seems to be getting insulted everywhere he goes. He kinda deserves it though. Sam is still a scumbag, much more than most of these characters. Nadine snaps at Orca saying he's the one who reduced Shorelines to just arms dealers, and he just laughs, saying that yet again, Nadine thinks too small, that the train was not for something as mundane as weapons or ammo, and saying they're gonna miss the fireworks, giving Chloe a clue of what might be on that train. Orca tries one last move, tossing the Tusk at them while pulling out a gun, but Sam gets Nadine out of the way of the shot, and the former Shoreline chief fires at Orca, killing him. Chloe grabs the Tusk, admires it for a moment before handing it to Nadine as she goes looking through Orca's things, finding the schematics for what he gave Fasov, a bomb. Chloe realizes the tracks go through the whole city, through the market, and while she doesn't say it, it's likely she's thinking about that little kid, so she decides she has to go and help. She's a hero now, of course, one of the good guys, so she can't walk away. Sam points out that they got what they came for, but Chloe is determined to go stop it. When Nadine asks Sam if he's gonna let her do this, he admits that Chloe has a point, which is that this bomb, if it goes off, will kill thousands. Nadine then turns back to Chloe and reminds her that it's not their fight, which is something Chloe tells her at the start of the game. But things have changed. Now Chloe has become a good person, and so she agrees that it's not their fight, but it is her fight. Because if the bomb goes off, it'll spark a civil war. The problem is, again, Chloe's morality shift feels too sudden. It's not really earned. They just needed to add a little flashback image of the little girl, make it personal, remind people that there was this innocent child where the train is heading, and that way you can more easily explain why Chloe's concerned. Because after hours of gameplay, there's a good chunk of the players that won't remember the little girl that appeared for 30 seconds when the game starts, so they won't recognize Chloe's realization when she says the bomb will detonate near the market. Nadine tells Chloe she'll die, it's a suicide mission. The bomb can't even be defused. But Chloe's okay with that, completing the turn from original flavor Chloe to selfless hero Chloe. She gets in the driver's seat and Sam gets on by her side, only for Nadine to send him to the back, calling shotgun. So the trio is now all on board with saving India, kicking off the most repeated and recycled set piece in all of Uncharted. One they just won't let die, the car chase. First jumping onto the train, leaving Sam behind, and then jumping onto other cars and doing the whole song and dance we've all done in nearly every title in the series, only this time combined with the train set piece from Uncharted 2. They get to the car with the bomb and do their best to unhook it from the floor to maybe move it, but no luck. Then they try to get to the engine room, but the doors have been welded shut, meaning nobody is stopping this train from getting to its destination. So their only choice is to reach a track switch in the distance and divert the train. So that's Chloe's next stop, jumping onto another jeep while Nadine remains on the train, fighting. She reaches the switch and with Sam's help, they divert the train, but come under heavy fire. Sam tells her to go, so she grabs the jeep, pursues the train, and launches off a natural ramp and crashes the jeep straight into one of the train cars, and it's frankly shocking this didn't derail the train altogether. She climbs out of the jeep and to the top of the train car, and this is where the Asaf final boss fight begins, and it's the same damn thing as before. Dodge a few times to get a hit in, and Asaf continues to be so good that he can fight both Chloe and Nadine at the same time fairly easy. Though eventually as the fight goes on, and again, it goes on a long while, the numbers advantage finally starts to have some kind of effect. Chloe gets tossed over the edge, and the damage the jeep did to the train means that when one of the cars passes by a marker on the side of the tracks, an entire chunk of the car with the bomb on it gets peeled off like paper, or like opening a tuna can. The fight ends with them trading blows right next to the bomb, and the damage has loosened and torn some of the straps holding the bomb in place. So when Chloe and Nadine kick us off particularly hard, he knocks it off balance and it lands on his leg and pins him to the ground. He snarls at them that they have achieved nothing, that more will rise, but Chloe turns his own words back on him, something the characters in this game love to do with one another, but in this case it's that progress demands sacrifice. And then they bug out, because the train's on a one-way journey to its doom, a chunk of a bridge missing from the tracks. It's a dead end, emphasis on the dead part. The two leads run desperately across the train car roofs, trying to reach the back of it, outrunning the train's fall into the abyss, and manage to escape by the skin of their teeth, reuniting with Sam and realizing they just saved thousands of people. And to complete the full face turn, if it wasn't already obvious, when Sam takes out the Tusk, Chloe says they'll turn it in with the proper cultural authorities, instead of, selling it, with Nadine accepting it and finally letting go of her dream of reviving Shoreline, thinking she may have a future in the whole treasure hunting business. Only Sam is left horrified that they will actually give the Tusk to the proper authorities. Then the credits roll, and they're cute, with cartoon versions of the characters going through little bits of the story. But then we see a final scene, back in that market from the beginning, with Nadine, Chloe, and the shrewd little girl enjoying a nice pizza. Sam is still trying to convince them to sell the Tusk for a good chunk of money, but the little girl gives him a slice and tells him not to ruin the moment. He takes a bite and then points to the pizza, probably saying that it's pretty good. And that's the end of the road, the end of not just Uncharted, The Lost Legacy, but all of Uncharted. And honestly, it's not a bad final outing. Sure, the plot has some very contrived elements, and I've seen better face turns in WWE than Chloe's sudden turn to paragon of goodness. But the locales are beautiful, and it's not a bad ride. And that's it for this lengthy retrospective. I might still have a video or two left to do, maybe a full kill count for the series, to find out just how large Nathan's body count really is. But if not, then I'll see you all on the next deep dive into some other influential game series. Maybe the next one is Darksiders, or Deus Ex, who knows? One thing's for sure, it's gonna be about some kind of gaming treasure.